First of all, can I ask number one, Gino Basili, would you mind opening the event, please, Gino?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gino Rizzoli. I've been here for 30 years, happily married, 3 children, 2 of which are at University of Bristol and Reading. Personally, I have a hobby. I've studied human behaviour for about 25 years. I've got a couple of coffee shops, nice and relaxed, so I've got the time. So I'm well read in human behaviour, religions, philosophies, very well read. Firstly, today the art of making the unacceptable acceptable doesn't work. That is yesterday's politics. Social media has put an end to the spin. Many of you work for the corporate world directly and indirectly. I will tell you an uncomfortable truth. Any belief system that is not inclusive of society will die. Who in the 60s and 70s thought communism would die? Unless capitalism becomes inclusive, it will suffer the same fate. Inclusivity requires a very simple ingredient. You have to care. We have to care about each other, not only in words, but also in our policies. However, the corporate world is driven by shareholder value. That's fine, but to be overly represented in government by corporate mentality does not help society. The corporate world is responsible for huge damage on the planet, even poisoning food that we consume. Every unfair decision in society comes at a cost. You may leave here tonight and become a statistic of crime. Perhaps you know someone suffering mentally or physically. Have you children? And fairness is like a poison gas in the atmosphere. You may not see it, but the effects are everywhere. Therefore, you see, there is no free lunch. On this platform are people who either represent the corporate world or indirectly support them. There are those that are well-meaning who will come up against a brick wall, for instance. No one section of society is more important than another. We need each other. How on earth can a government give help to those in need, paying everything from their rent to food, clothing and the like, and not to provide affordable homes for those that work hard and pay their taxes to fund that welfare? It does not make sense. A policy designed by uncaring politicians. A vote for me will change how states members are elected. I can make large contributions to education and health, particularly those who are young and left wanting. A vote for me will transform government. I want Jersey to be the envy of the international circuit for the very best reasons. What unites our differences is kindness and fairness. Together, we become limitless. Thank you.
Number 2, Ian Gorst, please.
Monsieur le Connétable-elect, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure for me to be here in St. Peter's this evening. I stood for elected office to make a difference and to provide hope for the future. This election is about change. And as Chief Minister, I've guided our island through some of the most difficult economic and social challenges that we have faced. But over the next 4 years, we face challenges that will set our future course as a community for many years to come. The uncertainty of Brexit, the international uncertainty, and the uncertainty of the EU. Of course, we've also suffered the effects of the global financial crisis, and I understand the effect that the Great Recession has had on family budgets. Jersey is a great place, and we have made significant progress across the community, but I'm not satisfied. There is more that I want to see achieved, and I've got 3 main aims during this election. Firstly, effective economic leadership. That means protecting and building on the many good things that we find in island life. So supporting the businesses that are already here and encouraging development and diversification, because our economic strength has not happened by accident. I will continue to represent Jersey's economy and way of life on the international stage, defending our reputation in the EU and elsewhere, and promoting investment and trade. I have always wanted, to ensure that all islanders share in that success. And that's why, for me, improving islanders' lives by building on what we have achieved so far is my second aim. I want to do more. That's why I'm proposing an Affordable Housing Commission, a coming together of the community to drive out costs and increase supply. And you in St Peter's know more, perhaps, currently than any parish about why that is so important. I want to see also a refocusing of the competition regulator, driving down the cost of living, a building on the long-term care scheme, providing government support at parish level. And post the care inquiry, I'm proposing a new contract with children and young people. Thirdly, I want to continue the transformation of government and the public sector. We have started to reform. We have recruited a new CEO, but there is much more to do, driving out waste and focusing on serving all islanders. When we work together, we can achieve change and a better way. I stand for hope for the future, so that you don't risk yours. I'd appreciate one of your votes on May the 16th. Thank you very much.
We can have candidate 3, Steve Pallett, please.
Good evening, Connertable and St Peter's residents. I'm Steve Pallett. I'm the Constable of St Brellards. In this election, I'm standing for Senator because I believe I have the energy, leadership and experience to play an active role in the island's next government. In this election, I'm going to be focusing on a number of issues, but specifically this evening, the need for affordable housing. You don't need me to tell you that one of the biggest challenges our younger generations face is getting on the property ladder. My own daughter has had to work hard with her husband to make that first step due to the lack of truly affordable first-time buyer properties. Without truly affordable homes, we are discouraging our young people from returning to or even staying to make their home in Jersey. Unless we act now, we will consequently have to rely on immigration to fill our skills gaps and take the place of the growing number of islanders who are reaching retirement age. The recent decision to turn down your application for 65 affordable homes and the reaction of parishioners and islanders alike shows both the public desire and the need for affordable housing. It is testament to the hard work of your parish constable and deputy, as well as others involved in the application, that the decision to reject it has evoked such a strong feeling. We are only going to satisfy the need for affordable housing if we work collectively to get it done. This requires input and willpower from the states, from the parishes, and from you, the public. I'm proposing as part of my campaign that the next Council Ministers identify sites for a further 500 affordable homes as a priority to remain in the first-time buyer category in perpetuity. These homes would be capped at around £300,000 for a 3-bedroom house and would be available through a shared equity scheme. Through my work as Constable of St Brellards, I've seen the positive impact that such a scheme can have. At Lamoy, we partnered in a similar scheme to the one that you've proposed, and it has delivered both affordable homes for young families and equity for the parish. But it's only through a cross-government approach that we are going to solve this problem. We need committed, forward-thinking people who are prepared to work together if we're going to achieve this. Now, some candidates on this platform will attempt to win your vote by throwing stones in glass houses. That isn't me. I want to work positively, building a better future for our young generation, delivering homes within their financial means. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to address the challenges facing this island, then you are going to need like-minded people who will work together. To address these issues, I like to think that I've shown through my professional and political life that I'm willing to work with anybody to get the job done. I have the energy, leadership and experience to serve as one of your senators and deliver for you on affordable homes, education and an active Jersey. Please consider me for one of your votes on May the 16th. Thank you.
Fourth candidate, Stevie Ocean, please.
Bonsoir, Monsieur Constable. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stevie Ocean. I will remain sitting because if I stand up, you can hear me, but I can't hear myself. I'm too far away from the microphone. So no disrespect intended, okay? Now, what are we going to talk about tonight? You may have seen my manifesto and you may go, oh, there's only parameters there. Let me explain to you the reason why I didn't go into detail. Now, it's quite intricate, the reason why, because there is just too much information that I've actually got into in depth to actually get into that booklet. If you'd like a copy of the expanded version, just email me and I'll send you one with no problem whatsoever. I've covered 6 areas. 4 of them will actually need to go through the States Assembly, and 2 of them I'm actually working on at the moment, and hopefully they might even be cleared up before the election date. So, what else am I going to talk about? First of all, when you do see this expanded version, you will see that the grammar is very simplified. Now, I've done this for a reason, because not everybody can read properly. I'm looking at catering for everybody on this island, and this is why I've done this. I've also put it in capitals to actually case for people who've got bad eyesight. If it was in 4 3/4 point type, people need a big magnifying glass to read it. So I want to make it easy for people to see. Anyway, what else am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about what happened back in 2016 when I stood in the by-election. First of all, I wanted to achieve and educate Google in America, and I had a 2-day argument with them over removing the letters UK from Google Maps. After this argument that went on for 2 days, I had a successful outcome. They saw my way of thinking and consequently have done so. Also, if you look at Google search engine, you'll see that there's a JE on the end now, which wasn't there before. I'm in the process of actually being in touch with LinkedIn in America and YouTube and Twitter, and re-educating these people to realize we are not part of the United Kingdom because they think we are. And the biggest and most horrifying thing I found out is Royal Mail think we are as well. And I can actually prove that. On the drop-down menus, my address is a private house, not where I live at all. So I've actually been in touch with them and said that they've got to get their finger out and sort this out, or I will be putting this through the media as soon as possible. So the final thing that I've achieved is, as somebody outside the States Assembly, I have managed to change the law. And that was due to the problem on the ballot paper back in 2016 with the name. So you will see the name on the ballot paper of Ocean Stevie as it should be. Thank you very much.
Candidate number 5, Sarah Ferguson, please.
Oh, thank you, yes. Good evening, Connétable and parishioners of St. Peter. One of the election camp followers has described me as a dinosaur, a Tyrannosaurus rex, perhaps. What he actually means is that I'm somewhat older than him. I'm 76 to his 20-something. However, I'm a mere stripling compared to Dennis Skinner, still at Westminster at 85, Manny Shinwell, left at 85, Ian Paisley at 84, not to mention Churchill at 89. Not that I'm making a comparison with them, but we talk of needing diversity in the Assembly, and that means race, sex, youth, and age. And let us not talk about the problem of the aging population. That's rubbish. Who is looking after the children in the holidays? The grandparents. Who is doing much of the volunteering in the island? The aging population. Who is doing much of the caring in the island? The aging population. That is, when they're not climbing Kilimanjaro, hiking through the Pampas, or trekking across Iceland. It is time we stopped writing them off and paid more attention to improve the way they are treated. Why should a pensioner go to A&E with a broken leg at 11 o'clock at night and be sent home with an elastic bandage and be told to come back the next day for the X-ray? Why? The X-ray has to be ordered by the doctor. There is a 45-minute wait to see him, and the radiographers go off duty in 40 minutes. Rubbish. We are all aware of the practice whereby we must have unlimited immigration so that we can have a sufficiently large working population to support the ageing population. A fine example of a Ponzi scheme. The proposed immigration policy is that immigration should not exceed the average of that since 2001, 700 people a year. And on that basis, by 2035, we will require 185 Le Marais blocks and 6 new primary schools. And where will we house them? We built 1,261 houses over the past 4 years, compared with an actual immigration of 4,200 over the same period. They are trying to squeeze all the homes into the urban areas, and they're getting smaller and smaller. We need additional sites in the villages to give the children of parishioners a chance to live in their home parish. The New Ireland Plan will give us that chance. We need change. Let's bring it on. Please vote for me for change with common sense and sensible government.
And can we have candidate 6, please, Philip Maguire.
Good evening, St. Peter's. Do you like horror stories? Because if you don't, I've got bad news to you. You're just about to live through one. What happens when our hospital is finally built in, say, 20 to 30 years for the sum of $20 billion and puts us and our children's children in debt? What then? Well, nightmare scenario number 1 is that the brand new shiny hospital will open up and on its first day, and people will walk into a brand new shiny reception to be greeted by a receptionist saying, "Terribly sorry, but we haven't got any doctors or nurses because we paid so much money on the building, we hadn't got enough for them." And they said, "Oh, that's fine, we'll just go to America or Switzerland or somewhere else where they can afford us." Nightmare scenario number 2. It's finished, and then the chief minister, whoever he or she is at the time, will say, "Terribly sorry, but because it cost us so much money and we didn't really have a way of paying it back, we're going to have to either increase taxes or have some kind of special health insurance so people can use this hospital." And we're suddenly transported to America, where it'll be that Jersey citizens will be left to suffer on the street while rich clients are ferried in. Nightmare scenario number 3. What if it's like the police station and we have to build an extra bit on it later that no one ever thought about? Nightmare scenario number 4. What if it's like the incinerator where we bought what we thought was a standard one and we've had to make modifications to it that I don't know who paid for? Nightmare scenario number 5. What if it's like the airport, which came in way over budget and has cost us money ever since? And, you know, how much money did it cost us to fix the shiny roof that was blinding pilots, if you remember that? Or that incredibly tall watchtower that I don't think I've ever seen the top of it because it's always in fog. Now, we're told, or rather recently we've been told, that the figure for the hospital is now approaching 800 million once you take into account the cost of the bond. That's rather unsettling for me because only June last year it was only 400 million according to the BBC. That sounds like quite a hike in such a short period. But they're saying to us, "Trust us, we know what we're doing." And I think, does that sound like some people who know what they're doing? My solution is very simple. Why don't we turn the whole damn thing over to a private organization that's worked tirelessly for us for over 40 years, providing top-rate medical ability for a low price, and by which I'm talking about Jersey Hospice, who've demonstrated that it's possible to deliver quality medicine at an incredibly low price. Thank you.
Philip, can I ask you to turn your mic off, please?
My apologies, thank you.
Thank you. Now, could we have candidate number 7, Sam Mezek, please?
Monsieur le Connétable, friends, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here this evening. My name is Sam Mezek, and I've been the Deputy for St Helier No. 2 for the last 4 years. In the States, I've served as the Chairman of the Care of Children in Jersey Scrutiny Panel, Vice Chairman of the Education and Home Affairs Scrutiny Panel, and of course chairman of the Reform Jersey Party. Outside of the States, I'm a trustee of the St Helier Youth and Community Trust, a founding member of the Living Wage Advisory Board and vice chairman of the Jersey Human Rights Group. I'm standing for senator because I want to make a difference for this island and because I want a democratic mandate to force the next States Assembly to put at the top of their list of priorities the aim of improving the standard of living for islanders. Over the last 10 years, whilst wages have stagnated, the gap between the haves and the have-nots has got wider. We are now a more unequal society than the UK, and poverty has drastically risen. We've seen many of our public services deteriorate whilst millions continue to be wasted by the government. People are finding it harder to get by, and there doesn't appear to be any sort of vision from the current government on how we can reverse these trends. I don't believe that words and platitudes are good enough. I want action. It isn't good enough for candidates to tell you they want to improve pay, they want to make housing more affordable, or they want to support businesses if they have no way of knowing that they can actually achieve any of it if they're elected. For some politicians, the word action seems to consist of little more than setting up a new quango every now and then. I think that I've shown myself to be a man of action by the fact that I've brought forward more propositions and asked more questions than all States members bar one. I brought forward propositions on increasing the minimum wage every year. I brought the first proposition to achieve marriage equality, and I successfully brought a proposition to ban exclusivity clauses in zero-hours contracts. And I've always been prepared to work with others who I might often disagree with if it's for the benefit of the public who we serve. I'm not interested in shouting from the sidelines. I want to be at the forefront of delivering positive change for the people of Jersey, aimed solely at making your lives easier. That's why I'm standing for election alongside 17 other candidates as part of a team, because we know there's strength in numbers, and together we will be more effective and can see more of our manifesto being implemented. At the very core of my political philosophy is the belief that politicians should be constantly working for a fairer society that works for everyone. Jersey has the potential to be a beacon around the world for equality, for prosperity, and for environmentalism, if only we had governments with a clear vision of how to get there. We are a prosperous island, but we must all be able to share in that prosperity to have happy and fulfilling lives. So on the 16th of May, please vote for me, Sam Mezek. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we have candidate number 8, Gordon Troy, please?
Good evening. I'm Gordon George Troy, Jersey-born, educated at De La Salle College. I'm passionate about Jersey. It's my island. I love it. I would appreciate the honour and the privilege of serving the people of Jersey as senator. Politics has been part of my family as long as I can remember. There's been a Troy or Shenton in the states of Jersey since when I was born, except for the last political term. I was going to stand for election when GST was introduced. I knew it was a pay cut for Jersey. I knew this tax would hit the most vulnerable in our society: the poor, the pensioner, working families with young children, and small struggling businesses. My aim, if elected, is to keep GST pegged at 5% and raise tax thresholds so that small income families and pensioners will pay less tax. I would like to make it clear I'm totally against increased taxes. I'm passionate about helping the Jersey pensioner, who has for a long time been politically overlooked. The pension scheme is meant to help people achieve and maintain financial independence. In my opinion, it falls well short of this. One of my main political aims, if elected, will be to assist pensioners to get better pension benefits, better health care, and better housing designed to meet their needs. Our senior citizens have helped create our island's prosperity. We must do our very best to look after them. And we've heard about the minimum wage, now the livable wage. But have we heard about the livable pension? Not a thing. If elected, I will try to make the phrase a reality by bringing propositions to the states of Jersey to improve your lives. I want to be the pensioner's friend and the pensioner's minister. If elected, I will strongly support the financial services and fintech industries, the backbone of our economy, producing most of the tax revenue and a high level of employment. I would give tourism, agriculture, retail, fisheries, building and development my support too. They're all important to the Jersey economy and the wonderful way of life we have. Jersey has failed to introduce proper immigration controls. This will change. Brexit will be the architect of our immigration policy. Under Brexit, the UK territories will have forced border controls. The UK will want to know who is here, what they are doing, and when they are going on exit. This is the time Jersey needs to put in a proper immigration policy and introduce work permits for all. Short season stay permits plus longer stay permits and licenses for key members of staff, vital to the island and to the island's economy. I would like to be at the forefront of negotiating our bilateral investment treaties in an important Brexit challenge for us. We must act urgently to build more homes and offer finance schemes that give more families home ownership opportunities. There has been too much irresponsible spending. Capital projects must, 1, be necessary, 2, for money, and 3, the financial.
Thank you. Can we have candidate 9 now, Lyndon Farnham? Lyndon, do you want to hold while that aircraft takes off? Fine, start the clock again, please. Thank you.
I'm pleased we weren't waiting for the boat. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Monsieur le Connétable, my name is Lyndon Farnham. In 2014, I was appointed Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture, and since then, I have worked on behalf of all islanders to ensure strong, sustainable growth across all sectors of the economy. Maintaining a strong economy is important not only because it provides new jobs and career opportunities, but it also creates the wealth required to help those in our community who find themselves in need and allows society to develop for the benefit of everyone. This evening, I too would like to talk briefly about the provision of affordable homes and population. And whilst there has been progress since 2014 with the delivery by Andium of 258 new homes with more on the way, and the acquisition of sites capable of delivering another 960 homes, together with the delivery of some innovative parish schemes, well, almost, and the private sector is also delivering about 300 new homes a year. It's not enough, and it therefore simply must be a key priority, a key target, in fact, for the next Assembly, to increase the supply of homes, at least in line with demand. Otherwise, we're not going to make any progress at all. Of course, the stumbling block for so many young people is the cost, and this is preventing them from aspiring to home ownership. Raising the deposit is very difficult. So in addition to addressing the demand, there must be greater efforts to introduce more help-to-buy schemes, and these should include deposit loans, shared equity, and equity release opportunities. We must also exploit new construction methods with new materials aimed at driving down costs and improving environmental standards and reducing the cost of running your home. Hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, we will all live longer, which means we should expect some population growth, but we must pay particularly robust attention to immigration, which has to be far more carefully managed. A new population policy will be debated by the states later this year, and I fully support plans that will ensure businesses, especially our more traditional industries, have access to sufficient numbers of staff, but which reduces the long-term impact on our population by introducing short and medium-term time-limited permits for newly registered workers. Ladies and gentlemen, despite what some candidates will tell you tonight, Jersey is in good shape. We have strong foundations, but we must keep it that way. And to do that, we will need to elect serious people, people with positive vision, highly experienced people with a proven track record of delivery, people who are committed to working for the benefit of all islanders. And I ask you please to bear that in mind on May the 16th. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have candidate number 10, John Le Fondre, now, please?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm John Le Fondre. I've had the privilege of representing St Lawrence as deputy for the past 12 and a half years. but tonight I'm seeking your support to receive an island mandate. Professionally, I'm a chartered accountant, which is very useful when dealing with expensive states projects, complex legislation, and large sums of expenditure. Importantly, I'm doing more and more on an international basis, working with both the French-speaking parliamentary side, l'Assemblée parlementaire de la Francophonie, and I also represent Jersey on the British-Irish Parliamentary Assembly. And it is vital for our economy that we promote the island to overseas politicians, explaining why we are of benefit to the UK and about our very unique position with Europe. I've been Honorary Secretary of Livo Housing Trust for over 20 years, giving me first-hand experience of the difficulties in providing social housing on this island. And because of my long connections with St Peter, I've been leading a working group assisting over 60 households in the Bay with the ongoing issue concerning the PFOS contamination from the airport into the groundwater. It's been a long, grinding slog, but I'm very pleased that mediation is now planned for June, and I hope that will start to achieve a conclusion to that whole saga. As President of Scrutiny and Chairman of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel, it's been a hard job holding ministers to account over the past 3.5 years. We've looked at many subjects, including the finance centre, the hospital, Brexit, and most recently a high-level look at population policy. Jersey is a beautiful island, but we do have pressures on us. Housing and population being the obvious ones, as well as a degree of uncertainty surrounding Brexit. It's therefore important that we approach inward migration in a very considered way. We need far better controls, but business does also need some flexibility. I refer you to our recent scrutiny report, which identifies some of the issues. We will need to grasp the nettle as to how we manage immigration, but firstly, we must have good data on what is actually happening within our overall population. I'm hugely passionate about the proper implementation of public sector reform, finally getting rid of the silo mentality. It will save us millions of pounds, but we need to be clear as to how it is being implemented. In my leaflet, I refer to the need to change in the way we do things in our organisational culture. But communication needs to be genuine and sincere. Jersey is still a fantastic place to live, I hope we all agree with that, but we have challenges and we have opportunities ahead of us. I have proven political and financial experience. Decisions I make are based on hard evidence. I do look at the long term. I'm prepared to listen, and I will work hard to get to a solution. And I hope you'll consider me for one of your 8 votes for Senator on Wednesday the 16th of May. And thank you.
And could we have candidate 11, Christina Moore, please?
Good evening, St Peter. It's good to be on home turf this evening. And I'd like to start by thanking you for electing me as your deputy for the last 6.5 years. It has been an honour to serve. A lot has been achieved over that time, but there's still a lot more to do. You've been patient and understanding when I took on additional ministerial responsibility in 2014. And after much consideration, I thought it was only right now to ask for an island-wide vote. So here I am. My campaign is about balancing competing priorities, working with others to find a better way and a sustainable future for our island. We can do this by focusing on 3 issues: the economy, the environment, and our community. When making decisions, we need to take all 3 into account to deliver a positive result for each and every person. I think the frustration felt by many Sampieres after the rejection of the planning application for the first-time buyer houses is an example of why we need a new joined-up way of thinking. People love the island's beauty. They want states members to make decisions that maintain our green fields and spaces. But that can't mean that we turn down every planning application. We need to balance the needs of our community. We know that many people struggle to get on the housing ladder. The high cost of housing can lead to financial hardship, as it takes up a large percentage of a family's total salary, leaving little for our living expenses. Compensating for this by taking on extra work to boost income can have an impact on a person's health and their family, which is one of the issues the Children's Commissioner has described in her initial findings. St Peter has understood that a balance needs to be found to offer families a better start. After broad consultation, we supported the application for 65 affordable homes on the field in the centre of the village. This 10-vergee site represents 0.0003% of the total area farmed in the island. On the economic side, there's a development gain too for the industry, enabling a new generation to take a stake in the family farm that makes prize-winning cheese and has a thriving farm shop. There's also a business that is expanding, buying a new farm that could have gone to residential use. So St Peter was also one of the first to introduce a community support team. This project, which I started with a team of volunteers, is a great example of the vital role that the parochial system continues to play in island life. Our community is safe and friendly, and schemes like this will protect our cherished parts of our lives. It also helps to ensure that we meet the needs of our elders. Experience has taught me that islanders want to see brave and clear leadership from experienced and compassionate people, and I hope you'll consider me for one of your votes.
Candidate number 12, Moz Scott, please.
Good evening, St Peter. The States Assembly needs fresh talent to bring new drive and direction to the Council of Ministers, because its seasoned politicians are part of our problem and not the solution. And it needs people with a track record for getting results. I'm an Oxford graduate, a former tax lawyer, a former partner of a major Jersey law firm and trust company, and a leadership trainer who knows what teamwork is. I'm extremely good at sorting out complex problems. And boy, are there some complex problems that the new Council of Ministers needs to address. How many cuts to valuable services has the current Council of Ministers approved, like withdrawing support for family nursing and nursery fees, while also allowing the spending of huge sums of public money in a multitude of ways that haven't been necessary or have achieved little or nothing? It's not easy for me to explain in just 3 minutes how proper leaders would sort out this mess. My strengths lie in my analytical skills and finding solutions using teamwork. I'm a quick learner. I don't need to be an experienced politician to get the job done. Plenty of politicians without my professional background and training in Jersey law haven't. If elected, I will work towards stopping the waste of public money, because we need funds to pay for things like affordable housing, not for another quango that passes the buck. I also will work on other ways of strengthening our economy to help those in need, while being fairer on taxpayers' pockets and on dedicated states workers. And I'll work on an island plan that actually supports affordable housing. With my love of this island, I will support stronger efforts to protect its scenic beauty, its reservoirs, its heritage, and its other limited resources, so that islanders can move forward securely without losing our separate and special identity. Most importantly, if elected, I will deliver a proposition to reform the States Assembly, partly to ensure the new Council of Ministers and Scrutineers act as an efficient team to deliver the results you actually need. I'm standing for Senator not for reasons of ego, but because of a compelling need to serve, to do what's best for all islanders, without being conflicted as a parish representative under current system. And this is all I can deliver in the time allowed to speak. If elected, I will deliver much, much more to you. So please have a look at my online manifesto to find out how, www.votemoz.je. Please consider me for one of your votes on the 16th of May as one of the few candidates capable of helping to bring in the changes that this island urgently needs to move forward.
And Ms. could you turn your microphone, thank you, Dan. Candidate 13, Gerard Bodar, please.
Monsieur le Connétable, Prisoners and Peter, good evening, thank you for coming. I'm Gerard Bodar. Now, I can't obviously give you all my views on the issues that we face in 3 minutes, but top of the list would surely be immigration. It's the root cause of all our problems. It's creating a housing crisis, it's damaging the economy, and it reduces our quality of life. Our economy is totally reliant on an industry that's coming increasingly under pressure as countries seek to prevent tax leakage. And we've been talking about diversifying the economy for as long as I can remember, but the government has done nothing. They seem to be glued to the finance industry. Ministerial government, excuse me, was promoted as saving money and producing quicker decisions. It has failed on both counts. It is unaccountable, incompetent, and dysfunctional. Now, many candidates, and I include those standing for deputy, will tell you how they're going to bring fresh ideas and change. Well, they're no doubt well-intentioned, but unless they join the Council of Ministers, their manifestos are worthless. And that's because ministers are our government, not the states, and it's they who rule. Other members are only observers, unable to deliver on their promises. Now, ministers live in a bubble. They don't listen to the public. Policies are not followed. Bad decisions follow one another. Costs seem out of anybody's control. We can't go on like this. And it's no wonder there's voter apathy. The electorate feel abandoned. They feel nothing will change however they vote. Well, unless we want more of the same, we have to change the system. And I don't mean the public sector reform underway, which, thanks to this government, is 7 years behind schedule and millions over budget. If elected, I will dedicate myself to changing the system. I have the experience. 40 years running my own business, including 15 running the family farm after my father died. 13 years as a States member, where I served on the Telecoms, Housing and Public Services Committees. I later served on the Shadow Scrutiny Panel, the Planning Applications Panel. I was Vice Chair of the Environment Scrutiny Panel, member of the Privilege and Procedures Committee, the Public Accounts Committee, the Law Revision Board, and various other working parties. But even that's not enough. You need the qualifications of a private detective to get to the truth and cut through the spin and the misinformation. You also need determination and a thick skin. I have those qualities. Now, the best position from which to make the changes that we surely need would be Assistant Chief Minister. And if elected, that is the post that I will be seeking. And it's from there where I could drive not only reform of ministerial government, but address immigration control as well. Thank you for listening.
And now candidate 14, Frank Luce.
Oops. Good evening, St. Peter. My name is Frank Luce. Thank you for attending this hustling tonight, and thank you for ensuring that your name be on the electoral roll, enabling you to vote. Your vote and how you vote has never been so important. We are facing a landmark election. You are going to shape the future of the next government for all Irelanders. You, the minority, are going to carry the apathetic majority into better government by your choice of candidates before you tonight. Never before has the gap between the government and the electorate been greater. Irelanders are so appalled by the antics of the present sitting States members that they have turned their back on politics and have lost total faith and feel angry that their opinions are completely ignored by the elected members once they get into government. Frankly, reading letters to the editor in the Jersey Evening Post should be made compulsory reading for all States members. The appalling successful low voting turnout since the war is testimony to the contempt Irelanders have for standing government. The situation can only be reversed by better government made up of members who first and foremost listen to the people and shape their policies to make government inclusive to the electorate. Then and only then will the greater public feel included, in touch, and this will result in a greater desire to vote. In the meantime, and for this most important election, your vote will speak for all Irelanders. Potential voters see the system of government in Jersey as bad. They want nothing to do with it. That was an opinion held by me. However, the present Assembly have horrified me to such an extent that I am now before you asking for your vote, so that I may represent the thoughts, feelings and opinions of Irelanders in the Chamber itself. I want to have a strong and significant input in two long outstanding issues, the appalling hospital saga and the independent inquiry into the lifeboat power and personality struggle the present government does not wish to happen. To face in the new Assembly the looming priorities of Brexit and population control, and ensure that agriculture and tourism are better supported to form a holy trinity of business sectors along with the finance industry. I want to work for a listening States Chamber that puts Irelanders first, and for that I need your confidence, support and of course your vote. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak to you, and hope to meet you and be of service to you for the next momentous 4 years. For your ballot paper, the name is Luce, Frank Luce. Thanks and good evening.
Frank, if you've got your microphone off, please. Thank you. Next candidate, number 15, Tracy Volwa, please.
Good evening, Conatap. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tracy Volwa. I have served as a States member for 9.5 years as a Deputy of St Saviour and a Deputy of St John. I have carried out numerous roles during this time that have either influenced or had a direct impact on policies and legislation. From waste charges, comprehensive savings reviews, economic stimulus plans, to higher education funding, income support, and the Housing Transformation Programme. I have served as the Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee and President of the Scrutiny Chairman's Committee and been party to approximately 50 reviews. I have also served as an Assistant Minister in both Education and Treasury. The role of a States member is not one to be taken lightly, nor is it one that any one person can claim they managed to do alone. I have proven that I am able and willing to work with all members on very pressing matters which have challenged and continue to challenge our island. Jersey is unique. Our locality on the global stage, our beautiful scenery, or more importantly, the very people who strive for a better way of life are just some of the reasons behind this. At a time of uncertainty for both residents and business, we need a public sector and the political representatives who govern them to listen, lead, and learn with honesty, integrity, and respect. My focus for the next term would be to go back to basics. We have a number of laws and policies which do not stand up to scrutiny. There is a need to reset our foundations to enable, support, and provide in the most optimal way for all islanders. Silo working practices should be parked to one side, and we need to embrace a change to ministerial government that harnesses teamwork. We need to change behaviour and set our values right from the start, ensuring we are delivering for the public in a cohesive and modern way. Opportunities are endless if we provide the correct frameworks for people to thrive. I would like to address the social housing rental policy, partner with rural parishes to assist in affordable home building around their village centres, utilise the property plan of the state's current capital assets to open up sites for development and modernise the way we provide services and give consideration to modular building. I have the tenacity, drive and experience to get the ball rolling on many of these issues, and I want to do it in partnership with you, the people of Jersey. Please consider me for one of your votes on the 16th of May. Thank you.
And could we have candidate number 16, Simon Bree, please?
Good evening, Monsieur Le Connétable, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Simon Bree. I'm proud to be a Jerseyman, and I'm currently a deputy for St Clement. I am chairman of the Economic Affairs Scrutiny Panel, the Future Hospital Review Panel, and the Machinery of Government Review Panel, and vice chairman of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. I have been working hard on your behalf to hold this government to account. There are major issues facing our island, which will have a direct impact on the everyday lives of every one of us. Unless we tackle these now, our quality of life and our island will change forever. Brexit is looming with its unknown impact on our economy. We must diversify our economy and support farming, tourism, the digital sector, small businesses and innovative startups so as to reduce over-reliance on the finance industry. The population growth over the last few years, if left unchecked and uncontrolled, will have serious consequences on our quality of life. Work permits, which are seasonal and time-limited, are the only real solution. Young families trying to buy their first home are finding it impossible. Government needs to encourage and support the parishes in delivering more small-scale affordable home developments to give these families hope for a better future. Much sooner these than large-scale developments of concrete and steel. That we have unseen poverty on this island is something that shames us all. We need to reduce the financial burden placed on middle to low-income families by reducing the cost and size of the public sector. This does not mean reducing services, and simply raising taxes is not the answer. Removal of GST on food and children's clothing would be a step in the right direction. And government must stop wasting money. £26 million on a new hospital without a spade being put in the ground. £800,000 on an aircraft registry and only one aircraft to show for it. Countless millions spent on UK consultants, with more spend just announced by our new chief executive. Politics in Jersey has become polarised. Let us together regain the middle ground. Let us have a government that has a social responsibility and is not just some uncaring, soulless corporate entity run by accountants whose only concern is balancing the books. Let us have a government that is committed to maintaining and upholding our traditions and customs that makes Jersey unique. And let us have a government that actually listens to the people and not just to big business. We need a change in political leadership, and this election offers a real opportunity for change. It is time for your voice to be heard, and your vote is your voice. But change will only happen if you vote. Working together, we can make a real, positive difference to the lives of every member of our society. I would be honoured to receive your vote. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I ask candidate 17 to make his speech, I'd like to just make a statement. He's asked me to say a few words on his behalf, which all the other candidates have agreed that I can do. As you may be aware, Anthony has aphasia, a speech and language disorder caused by a serious stroke 10 years ago. Anthony is taking a full part in the senatorial campaign, but his difficulties with language mean that the traditional hustings format of questions without notice is not practical for him. So he will not be answering questions tonight. Aphasia is a condition that affects communication, but not ability. He will be responding to questions online on his Facebook page, and he will also be holding a number of surgeries which are better formats for his particular disability. Anthony has asked me to thank you for your understanding and allowing him not to answer questions tonight and to make his speech via his iPad. Anthony, number 17, Anthony Lewis, please, could we hear from you? Thank you.
You have never seen a candidate like me before. I am different. I have a different campaign and a different voice, but different is what Jersey needs. My stroke has left me disabled, but it has given me courage, determination and new insight. I will represent those who, like me, don't have a voice. Not just the disabled, but everyone who feels that today's politicians don't speak for them. My focus includes the environment, equality, and community. We need to improve the community of Jersey. We need to improve the environment. It will cost money, but it is an investment for my children and your children. There is no clear voice for the environment in the current states. That has to change. Equality. I bring a new perspective, one formed by both success and hardship. I believe mental health provision must be higher up the political agenda. More understanding and reduced stigma. Where we see inequality and stigma in Jersey, it should be fought. We are improving and have more cosmopolitan living. To create a more equal island. The dangers of having an island of haves and have-nots. I believe that the most marginalized and downtrodden members of our society have something to contribute. From the inmate at Lamoille to the homeless man in the parade. We all have insights and abilities to help make Jersey a better place to live. Everyone has skills and talents. Everyone. We need a system that allows those talents to flourish. The first step is to break down our own stigmas. That is a role of education and defining common goals. Our children and their schooling hold the key. It is then identifying those abilities and channeling them where they are most needed. We need more social enterprises to create businesses and programs that build on our social capital, like my campaign headquarters, the Beresford Street Kitchen. Communities working together makes us all stronger, and it starts at school. We also need greater recognition of support. The voluntary sector. With more effort from the states, we can better coordinate the work that charities do. I will be the first person with aphasia to stand for the states. I appreciate that makes me different. You may ask, how will I be able to represent you? With modern technology, I can. But for more information, please visit my website, www.andlewis.com. I hope that I will be able to represent all islanders, including those who don't always fit in with the norm. You have 8 votes for senator. Please use one of those on someone who will truly represent change. Thank you.
I'd like to thank all the candidates for making their opening speeches. As I said at the very start, I will now take 2 questions from the floor. Can you keep your questions short and succinct, and that'll be passed along the line? Or the candidates agreed that they'd start with candidate 6, going upwards, and then back round to candidate 5 for the last answer on the 2 questions. And can they come from the residents of St. Peter initially, please? Do I have a question in the room? If so, please hold your hand up. We'll deliver a microphone. A question from the audience, please, for the candidates. Okay, over here, Mr. Sokov.
Good evening. We've heard a lot tonight about immigration and housing, etc., and they are all important points. The island is facing a lot of external challenges, and I think it's going to be very important who is going to be the next External Relations Minister. I think they've got a tough job. You've been elected, you've done very, very well, and the Assembly has decided that you are the next Chief Minister. Who would you select from this table to be your External Relationship Minister?
Thank you. And a second question, please, for the candidates. Somebody right at the back there. I can't see who it is.
Good evening, my name's Glyn Mitchell. Sorry I'm not from St. Peter's, but close enough, St. Brellards. I'd like to understand what the candidate's view is in chemical farming, and does it have a future in Jersey? Thank you.
Short and sweet, thank you very much. The first one to answer questions tonight is candidate number 6, Philip Maguire. Philip, who would you like to see as the next External Relations Minister, and your views on chemical farming, please?
Wow, now that's an interesting question, isn't it? I've got to admit that out of all the candidates here who are standing against me, the one I have the most grudging respect for is the person sitting next to me, Sarah Ferguson. Back 4 years ago in St. Clements, she demonstrated that she was one of the very few people in the island who seemed to understand and be able to read a set of accounts, which I would have considered to be essential as aspects. Now, that may not sound much like an external relationship manager, but anyone who knows what the state of the island is in the best position to discuss the benefits of dealing with people outside. As far as chemical farming, I'd like to say that the petrochemical farming has certainly had its day. It's demonstrated that it's overpriced and inefficient, and it's great to see people around the world getting rid of it in preference to other things. As for other chemical farming, I'm sorry, that's a little bit beyond my expertise, and I have to admit I'm not sure if that's any other type than that. If we go on a little bit further, while I've got the opportunity, seeing as I've got 2 minutes, it's great to see that people are using initiatives, for example, the use of insects in preference to pesticides, and the use of mixing different types of species of plants so that they actually help each other to fight insects and other such problems. This is a massive and useful technology because the end result of it is it's free. So let's use it, because that way at least it brings better profits to people who are trying to try and grow our food and other such things. And to understand the use of farming and its importance to the world. It doesn't just produce our food, but also medicines, some of the materials for the clothes we wear. Oh, I'm sorry, I do apologise. I thought I had some time left. I do apologise.
Terribly sorry, I've hit the wrong button here. I've turned myself off. There we are. I'll have to shout. So can I have candidate number 7, please, now Sam Mesek.
On who should be the next External Relations Minister, I'll give you a surprising answer. I would pick Ian Gorst to be the next External Relations Minister. He and I disagree on a host of domestic policies, and that's something that's obviously going to come up in debates here. But when it comes to foreign policy, there isn't actually much between us. I think that what Jersey should get out of Brexit, I think there's probably consistent agreement across the political spectrum that we want as much of Jersey's current relationship with Europe to remain the same, because we've got certainty with that. We know the impacts that would have on our economy, and I think that on that, because our policies are aligned, that is who I would choose to take that role. The point I would make, though, is that I think that for the sake of Jersey's future, I think Jersey's next government needs to be much more politically inclusive than the government has been over the last 4 years. I think you get good government if you get people from different political persuasions who are prepared to challenge one another and ask tough questions. And I think the next government should be more inclusive than the one that we've had so far. On chemical farming, does it have a future in Jersey? Well, of course, it can't have a future in Jersey because it involves putting stuff in the ground that is bad for it. There is only so long you can do that before you eventually will get nothing from that ground because it will be poisoned and you simply can't use it anymore. So no, it doesn't have a future, it can't. But to improve the environmental practices in the agriculture industry, as I said, it requires more than just platitudes. It requires actually action to get to that point where we're making it viable for businesses to avoid using chemicals without having to worry about profit margins and without having to worry about their business being able to continue. So I think we need more than just words on that. I think there's ways that we can look into introducing more environmentally friendly practices in that industry. Carbon reward scheme is one that's been floated. I think that we should at least consider that.
Thank you. And candidate number 8, Gordon Troy, please.
Well, it would be External Relations Minister. I would like to be External Relations Minister. But if, as the question was asked, I was First Minister and had to choose someone, I think I would probably choose the man next to me here. He's an accomplished politician. He's been around a while now, knows his way around the circuit, and I think he would be a good ambassador and negotiator for Jersey. So, Lyndon, thank you. You're my choice, all right? You're my choice too. Good. Chemical farming. I think, we've got two great brands in farming, the Jersey cow and we've got the Jersey potato. And other than a lot of market gardening stuff for supplying to supermarkets, it would be good to get some other major product that we could export. Now, whether it would be chemical or not, trouble with chemicals is you have to get rid of them somewhere. And we don't really have a situation where we can dispose of environmentally unfriendly products. So I wouldn't be fond of chemical farming, but I think there must be something we can come up with that is worth funding and would produce an income for the agricultural industry. Thank you.
And now candidate number 9, Lyndon Farnham.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert, for that question. I think there are a number of members on this platform who could do it. I would prefer Sir Philip Balash to still be here to do it. I think he's represented us well overseas. Ian Gorst would also make an excellent External Relations Minister. and perhaps Gordon as well, because he said I could do it. Glenn, I know you are doing a lot of work in, I'm trying to avoid the outstanding in your field pun, doing a lot of good work on this, and there has to be huge reductions in the use of chemicals as the technology around chemicals is improving, and the new rural economy strategy now is paying farmers, as opposed to an area management, paying farmers on working to make environmental improvements. Now, I know it's not totally where we want to be, but I want to praise the farmers and land managers who are working now more closely, I think, than they ever have done with the states towards a shared goal of using less chemicals and improving water quality. Nitrate levels in island streams continue to reduce year on year, and that's something we need to mustn't take our foot off the pedal there. We've got to keep working really hard, but I would praise the efforts of farmers for the work they're doing. A long way to go, but we're moving in the right direction. Thank you.
And candidate number 10 again, John Conway, please.
Mr. Surkoff, your question assumes I'd be Chief Minister, thanks to that vote of confidence, or not. On that basis, yes, I too would be supporting Ian Gorst, because we do need somebody who's got experience in terms of the international arena. Actually, having caveated all that, you've got to have a team, particularly in external relations, and I don't mean just at the civil servants level, because one of the problems we have lost the Philip Banash, and suddenly it feels like there's a bit of a void. And one thing I've learned, particularly on, for example, British Irish, we've made a deliberate decision to take two of us away, which means two of us can work the room, two of you get to know the politicians in that room, and then if one of us gets run over by a bus, there's someone who can carry on. And I think that's what you need to do. You need to have a team that goes with you. Mr. Mitchell, yeah, short to medium term, yes, it's going to be. Long term, obviously, the chemical farming, I think, will reduce, speaking as a non-farmer. Obviously, to achieve this, we need to incentivise on technology, and obviously in relation to your work that I'm also, well, you've tried to explain to me twice, and I think I've got the gist of it, but it does seem to me that the trials that are going on in relation to soil improvement, we should be encouraging those to take place, make sure we have got the proper test data down, make sure they can demonstrate their effectiveness, and that obviously logically would seem to be the way forward. I'll just refer back to technology. In January, as part of my British Irish work, I sit on one of the committees that looks at the impact of Brexit on ag and fish. I was in a very cold Scotland, in Edinburgh, a meeting with the National Farmers Union, and they were demonstrating to us how a farmer tying in the satellite information on his field, that ties into the machinery that injects the fertilizer into the ground, and I appreciate that's not quite where we're going, but it ensures that not too much fertilizer is put in the wrong place, so that it's environmentally better, and the farmer has saved a fortune as well, because less fertilizer going in the ground. So if there's those sort of technologies and other things around that, that all comes together to achieve what we're seeking. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate number 11, Christina Moore, please.
Thank you for the questions, and I'm going to continue the trend and tell you that I would certainly put Ian Gorst in the position at external relations. He has a proven track record and is an excellent operator. I've seen him for myself working a room in foreign places, and he has developed excellent relationships with many people and always impresses those that he meets, and he has worked tirelessly for Jersey. So I think that would be an excellent appointment. On the issue of chemical farming, we have to take a balanced view in this area. I think for the community, we certainly need to ensure that our water resources are clean and that our soil quality is good. And so it would be, in my view, the right thing to see greater diversity in agriculture. However, from an economic perspective, you can't simply tell farmers that they have to change what they've been doing for many years in an instant. And we have also one of our greatest ambassadors in the Jersey Royal. So I would like to see the Jersey Royal continue to grow in the island and for farmers to make a success of their crop. However, I would like to see greater diversity and more of a move towards organic methods for those diverse products. And we have seen, as some candidates have already mentioned, an improvement in the use of pesticides in farming methods for a more direct approach, which has reduced nitrate levels, and I'd like to see more of that. We have seen also some new crops being introduced, such as hemp. Also, people are growing apples again and developing cider and juice products, which is good to see. As a community, we need, I think, also to have a level of sustainability and an availability of fresh produce that is grown here in the island. And so I hope that helps to understand my perspective.
Can we have candidate number 12, Moz Scott, please?
The next External Relationship Minister, I agree with Sam, and I agree with John, and I agree with Christina. I believe Senator Ian Gorst is a very diplomatic man with a lot of experience and knowledge in this field, and probably the most appropriate person to replace Sir Philip Balash. I do understand that he wishes to serve as Chief Minister again. I believe that a Chief Minister should be somebody who coordinates skilled ministers to work together. So I would very much hope that it would be a case of somebody stepping in to do the job that needs to be done, and that there isn't whoever wants to be Chief Minister isn't doing it for matters of ego. The chemical farming, no, I don't believe it has a future in Jersey. It shouldn't have a future in Jersey because Jersey's population is going to grow to some point, and the more it does, the more pressure there is in terms of the nitrates that are going in the soil. It's causing these problems with the sea lettuce. It's causing problems with our reservoirs. And I'm looking towards working with the farmers, giving them economic support to come with a gradual plan towards working towards regenerative farming methods. And I do find the Credible Food Project's proposals very interesting in that respect. Short and sweet. Thanks.
Candidate number 13, Gerald Boudin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Conatable. I agree with some of the other speakers. I think were I Chief Minister, Senator Gorst would be the ideal candidate. Of course, as External Relations Minister, of course, there would be another benefit. It would keep him out of my way. Now, as for the farming issue, I've lived on a farm all my life, and I know that farming became unprofitable in the 60s to the extent that only a fraction of the farms exist now that used to. And farming is barely viable. We can't rotate the crops as we should. We can't afford the cost of spreading rack as we used to. We have to use chemicals because we can't afford to employ gangs of staff with forks, hoes and sickles. It is very difficult. The whole issue is how can we get farming more profitable, because until we get it more profitable, no more options will be possible. We have to increase the profitability. How we do that, I'm open to ideas. It's very difficult. But just to close, I do get slightly concerned when people keep knocking farmers. They say they're causing the nitrate pollution and all this sort of thing. Farmers do not use fertilizers and chemicals unless they have to. Those substances are expensive and costly to apply. Thank you.
Moz, could I ask you to turn your mic on, please? And the next candidate, number 14, Frank Luce. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're all in agreement, aren't we? Ian Gorst is going to be the next External Minister. Simple as that. He's had his day. He's had 2 terms of office. It's time there be a new Chief Minister, somebody with a bit of backbone and a bit of personality and a bit of passion. So yes, Ian Gorst can be our External Minister. As far as farming is concerned, I think it's back to grassroots really, isn't it? It's up to farmers and government to get together. It's 2018, we get together and we work out what is best for the farming industry to bring it back into the Holy Trinity of finance and tourism. And if it's going to cost money, which inevitably it will do, or more money for farmers, then it is for the government, if we are moving forward, it's for the government to help and support farmers. But basically, let them get together and talk and know that they're on a level playing field. And if it's going to cost them money, some of that money is going to come from the states. Thank you.
Candidate number 15, Tracy Valwa, please.
Thank you for your questions. In terms of External Relations Minister, of course, with the Brexit, the new global market strategy, and the need to keep our foot on the pedal, I would actually pick out of two, depending on which one gave the best speech and the best ability forward in the States Assembly, would be Simon Bree or Ian Gorst. They both have the diplomatic ability, I believe, to represent the island and do what needs to be done with the external challenges that are facing us. In terms of the chemical farming, does it have a future in Jersey? Well, I think the water management plan is a start, but if we're going to get there, be more determined and get there more quickly in terms of reducing chemical farming, then there needs to be an appropriate support needed for farmers and further resource for the Environment Department for them to work together hand in hand. My understanding from speaking to just some of the farmers that they are going above and beyond trying to find alternatives, something like, I believe it's called bioalgine, which they obtained from another jurisdiction, which assists in farming without the chemicals. So I believe if we're going to push forward for reducing the chemical farming, then we need to ensure we provide the appropriate support and we're not heavy-handed, because we need to ensure that the farming continues to support our island and carries on being the guardian of our lands. Thank you.
And candidate number 16, Simon Bree, please.
Thank you very much. As to External Relations Minister, I actually think there are two people who would be very good at this, either Ian Gorst or John Lafondre. Both of them have got experience of dealing with overseas politicians. And once again, I think it would be hard to choose who would be best. With regards to chemical farming in Jersey, the answer is no, it does not have a future. Intensive farming has ruined the soil quality and the water quality of this island. And it's not the farmer's fault. You've got to understand, farming needs to make a profit. So they need to have a crop that they can actually see a profit from. So they're going to do what they can to increase the yield of a particular field. But really, it's government that's let farming down over the years. Government has not continued the right level of subsidies to farming to keep it going in a way that benefits all of us. That's the environment and the produce. We need to support organic farming. There are new market opportunities coming around. Organic products are becoming more in demand in the UK now. Post-recession, we had to get over that. We need to look at organic farming as a viable option for the whole island. But I actually met over the weekend with Jersey Hemp, who are doing trials at the moment on the hemp crops. We really need to get behind this group. The benefits of growing hemp to the farmers are they don't have to do anything. Jersey Hemp rents their fields for a short period of time, so there's guaranteed income. Hemp takes up nitrates, excess nitrates, out of the soil, and it actually offers a really good solution to our long-term problem, which is farming in Jersey cannot continue as it is without rotation coming in, without alternatives crops coming in. Government needs to support organic initiatives and Jersey Hemp through financing. Thank you.
Now we go back to candidate number 1, Gino Rizzoli, please.
I'll answer the farming question. It's questions, you see, it's very interesting, isn't there? You ask a question, and on a panel here, you probably don't have an expert because of the quality of candidates, to answer your question. You see where we are. This is where government needs complete change. But definitely, every country needs to grow food. You must have the ability to grow food. Nitrate levels are a problem. There's Waitrose is a big buyer of organic foods, and I would subsidise the farmers so it is viable. You can look at the books and make sure you don't over-subsidise them. But yes, we need good quality land and not over-farm land, and certainly not nitrates. When it comes to the external minister, of course, we lost the best man. Yeah, for me, it is Gorst or Le Fondre. But, I mean, that's external. Internal politics, I'm afraid, tonight, this is very tough because it's short time. There's a lot of people saying stuff here, and there's only about 4 or 5 that are strong candidates, and they support the finance industry. But supporting the finance industry isn't supporting you. It sounds like it is, but it isn't. I'm telling you, it really isn't. Unless you bring this community together with facts, understanding of human nature, I'm afraid we've got a very bumpy time. We don't want opinion today. Enough opinion. We need facts driving. Life is changing too quickly, and you've got to be at the cutting edge. So forget the eloquent language, right? Cut and thrust. You are the people that look after business, not these people. You provide the wealth, not these people. There's an arrogance.
Thank you. Can we have candidate number 2, Ian Gorst, please?
Ladies and gentlemen, there are a number of people who have chosen to stand down during this election, and their shoes are going to be very difficult to fill. And Phillips are some of those shoes that are going to be difficult to fill. The external relations function is carried out concurrently with the external relations minister and the chief minister. And throughout the last 6 years, I think we've achieved a lot. We've set up a separate department, we've created a minister, we've created a London office. We were one of the only places throughout the British Isles that had a plan for Brexit, and on day one were right ready and started communicating with the British government what we thought was in Jersey's best interest. We've got a global markets strategy. We've done many, many things. Politics is a very strange business. We see tonight 360-degree feedback. It seems that the majority of candidates are not certain that they think I'm doing a good job in the one I currently am, but they'd like to put me somewhere else. I suppose I can take comfort in that. For me, politics has never been about labels. It's never been about status. I stand to serve this community, and I stand to serve the states where they want to put me. I make no secret. I'm open and honest. If I am successful, and that depends on your vote, then of course I'll put my name forward to carry on doing what I'm doing. If the Assembly don't want me to do that, then I would put my name forward to be External Relations Minister. I can't be more open with you than that. We've had a number of questions about farming. We know, don't we, that the Action for Cleaner Water group have now seen fertiliser reduced by between 15 and 20%. We know that the hemp trials, as your deputy said, can be grown without any chemical intervention. But we've got to work with farmers because they're the custodians of the countryside. They make Jersey the beautiful place that it is, but over time it's going to change without a doubt. Thank you.
Before I ask the next candidate, Gino, can I ask you to turn your mic off, please? Thank you. Candidate number 3, Steve Pallett.
Thank you. Certainly we're going to need somebody that has got experience of dealing both nationally and internationally. I think with less than a year to go to Brexit, I think we're going to have some really strong leadership in terms of making sure that we get what we want from any future agreements. I think we need to ensure that we maintain a free movement of capital, for example, in and out of Europe. And I think that's a really important point. Global markets have been mentioned. And we have a global markets team that's going to be looking at Africa, USA, India, and the Middle East. And I'd have absolutely no hesitation in appointing my colleague here, the Chief Minister. but my guess is it's probably not the job he wants. In terms of chemical farming, no, I don't think it's got a long-term future. Pesticides, I think we've drastically reduced their use, but we're still getting incidents of pollution. That's disappointing. We need to deal with that. Nitrates, farmers are starting to reduce their use. We are working with them. I think for the LEAF programme, we need to work with them. I think in terms of rewarding them for any environmental gains. I think other people have said that as well. But we have to support the industry. I agree with Deputy Bree. There's not been enough investment in the farming industry in terms of support and subsidy over the last 20 years. That's something we've got to turn around and work with the farmers to address. But simply chemical farming, no, I think we've got to withdraw from it as quick as we possibly can.
Candidate number 4, Stevie Ocean, please.
Right, I would actually choose Ian Gorst because Ian has vast experience on a national and international stage. And it's given Ian an option just in case he doesn't become Chief Minister. So he would be in the forefront of what goes on. As far as chemical farming is concerned, no, it hasn't got a future as far as I'm concerned. Pesticides, insecticides, gets into the soil and eventually gets into reservoirs and eventually end up in the sea. And then the old monster, the old grey-eyed monster of Eddie Knowles' sea lettuce raises its head. And incidentally, he'll be serving that with chips at the end of the hustings free of charge. Thank you very much.
And finally, for these 2 questions, number 5, Sarah Ferguson, please.
Thank you very much. Right, the External Relations Minister needs to be tactful, persuasive, patient, persistent, and personable. I would actually pick either, given that I'm the Chief Minister at this point, I'd actually pick Le Fondre or, Deputy Le Fondre or Deputy Valois, because they are both, I've worked with them closely over the last few years, and they're both incredibly competent and determined and very far-sighted and think very well. Chemical farming, yes, I agree. We need research into the soil quality. A better quality of soil, I understand, will drain better, not get waterlogged, and improve yield. We need to have a joint effort between the farmers, the utilities, the government, and the public, not just organic, but regenerated soil. There are areas where Glyn and I don't agree, but we must improve the soil because it's being regenerated. And for new crops, I'm looking forward to the Jersey tea crop. Camellia sinensis. Camellias grow very well over here, and I understand somebody is actually having a go at growing tea. They're growing it very well in Cornwall. So those are my choices. Thank you.
Right, back to the floor for another question. Lady right at the front here, and another lady. Oh, sorry, take this lady at the front, and then I think St. Peter's Mark over there second. This lady here, please, Sarah, first. Oh, all right, Sarah will do this one. And Sarah, if you could pick up Mark, please.
Good evening. I would like to know what is going to be done, what action can you take to sort out the rental prices at the minute. The rental prices are completely out of sync with salaries. If I come over from the UK, I get maybe a 20-30% increase in salary. To get a similar property here, I have to pay 500% increase in rent. Somebody tell me what you're going to do, please, to sort that.
Okay, thank you. And Sarah.
Good evening. On the back of the care inquiry last year, obviously there was various recommendations made to support children and young people. Could each candidate give us 2 areas where they would invest in services for children and young people in Jersey?
Thank you, Mr. Capern. So the first question is how the candidate's going to sort out the horrendous rental prices here in Jersey. And the second one is on the back of the care inquiry, which two areas would candidates focus on about care of children in the community? And the first person of that one is candidate number 12, Moz Scott, please.
Sorry, can I have to start my time again?
Yeah, just can you reset the clock for a moment, please, timegivers? The young lady wanted to point out that she's talking about in the private sector rather than within the social sector in housing trusts and Andium. Thank you, Moz. Thank you for taking that break.
Okay. The problem with high rents is to do with the way in which land has been used here. It's a limited resource. And what I am proposing to do, it's in my manifesto, is to look more into how well we use land. I can't promise any immediate changes because short of handing out money and subsidising it, and at the moment money seems to be going everywhere else, and I'd like to bring it back and direct it in some better places. But I'm looking at some enforcement of some current policies that are in the Island Plan already that ensure that houses aren't just taken out of the current housing stock to, say, become guest houses for millionaires. I love the millionaires, don't get me wrong, but I really don't feel that that's how we should be using land. And also some measures to discourage use of unoccupied houses. So it means there's more stock there, and it means that people are encouraged to rent and at lower prices. Two measures to invest in childcare. I am very much an advocate of supporting early years education, to support nursery support as well, bring it down a bit earlier, for two reasons. One, it helps break the poverty cycle. The sooner you've got kids who are actually getting proper nursery education and aren't just given to childminders who aren't looking after them because that's the cheaper way of looking after kids when you're working, then that would be a better way of breaking the poverty cycle, sorry. And also, okay, I'll finish there. Thanks.
Moz, your mic, please, Moz. The next candidate, please, number 13, Gerard Baudin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Constable. Children, well, in my view, the problem is we have, well, it's been happening for some time, a changing society. My biggest worry at the moment is about housing, the types of housing we're building. We used to have family houses with multi-generational. You would have, as Senator Ferguson's been outlining, you would have elderly people in the house looking after the children and all sorts of things. It's not happening anymore. People virtually live alone in their flats. And the flats that we're building now have no amenity space, so that the children start out with not enough amenity space, not enough...
Can you hold the clock there for a moment, please? It's all very well having an airport in your parish, paying lots of rates, but they do create a bit of a disturbance, particularly the husting.
They did want to build one at the Lock once, yes.
Right, I think we can continue now, Gerard.
Thank you. Yes, there's insufficient interaction between children, but the question was about investing. Well, I'd start off by investing more in the civil service because I've had a concern for a great deal of time in the children's service. They don't seem to be doing what they should have been doing. I know of cases where they've taken children away from families and put them in unsuitable conditions. What are they doing? They don't seem to be accountable to anybody. The children's service over the years has become an organisation which seems to be autonomous. You ask questions of the Minister, what are they doing? Why are they doing this? Nobody seems to know. There's unaccountability. The first question I didn't fully understand, residential housing?
Rents.
For rent?
Private rents.
I know there have been questions about the cost of rent. Is that what the question was basically about? Unfortunately, it's a function of the cost of the house. And until we do something about immigration, supply and demand is always going to keep the price of houses high. It's going to keep the cost of rent high. There's not a great deal you can do about that without controlling immigration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have candidate 14, Frank Lewis, please.
In terms of the lady's question over there in regards to the high rents, unfortunately we've got high rents because property prices are so high. I'm an estate agent, I've been one for 43 years, and with the exception of probably the constable here, who once upon a time was an estate agent, there probably aren't very many other people who are fully aware of the property market in the island. After 43 years I am. Property prices are very high, consequently rentals are very high. It's as simple as that. If you have a property and you want to rent it, then obviously you want to rent it at a reasonable price. But unfortunately, what a landlord would consider a reasonable price is probably not what would be considered a reasonable price on the open market. When you're getting houses of £500,000 and they're boxes in St Peter's Village, you're looking at a £25,000 a year rent for a 5% return. So the cost of property dictates the cost of rentals. And that's something that you are never going to be able to get over unless you have landlords that are quite prepared to give their rental properties away for nothing. That's never going to change. In terms of what one could do for children, children today are looked after by all manners of people because both husband and wife have got to go out to earn a living to pay the rents and to pay for the properties. I would have a government-led nursery service so the children, from the moment they left home to the moment they left home to go abroad or whatever, they were looked after by the government. Thank you.
Frank, can I ask you to turn your mic off, please, Frank? Thank you. The next candidate, candidate 15, Tracy Volwa, please.
Thank you. In terms of addressing rental prices, it would be a mixture of dealing with the supply that's needed in the market, but there are a number of pieces of legislation and policies around that as well that need to be addressed, like the residential tenancy law and ensuring that there's correct resource in the Environmental Health Department to enforce the rented dwellings law properly. But there's currently an affordability review being carried out on housing, a holistic one. And I wouldn't be surprised if there may be a requirement to actually look at potentially capping rents because of how high rents are actually getting. In terms of the care inquiry, Mark, the youth service does an absolutely wonderful job, absolutely fantastic job for this island, and sometimes it goes completely unseen. And I don't think some people would realise actually what would happen if we did not have that youth service. And so I would invest in the youth service because they've been charged with doing the Voice project and actually setting up a youth council and a variety of other things. And their funding is uncertain at times, and I believe that the government needs to provide appropriate support and determination to ensure that actually we back them. The other area I would focus on would actually be Brighter Futures, which is a charity which is based in St Saviour's, who focuses on the family and looks after helping them in terms of issues with parenting or problems with them being able to get out of a vulnerable cycle in their families. And they do a fantastic piece of work. So that's where I'd invest those two particular areas.
And candidate 16, Simon Bree, please.
Thank you very much. Rental prices in the private sector is a problem. It's very, very difficult to actually control them. A lot of people are paying up to 2/3 of their income just on their rental per month. That leaves them with nothing. Government has to find a solution to it because it is putting people into unseen poverty, and that is something we cannot allow to continue. Whether or not government can come up with some sort of, as a short-term issue, rental tariffs that landlords have to adhere to based on the character of the property, that is something we can look at. Longer term, it's about supply and demand and about controlling our immigration. That's the only way we're really going to get a handle on it. With regards to the care inquiry recommendations, what would I invest in? Well, I think the biggest failure that came out, or shown to have come out, was the attitude of possibly staff towards children. We need to invest in the right staff. We need to invest in the right accommodation that children can live in. We need to create a loving environment. But perhaps the most loving environment is actually a home. So why don't we invest more in fostering? Actually provide financial incentives to people to foster, encourage fostering, because a child grows much better in a nurturing, loving environment of a home where there aren't a lot of other children around competing for attention. So why can't we put more money into fostering? That's the way to really look after children who are in our care. It's our responsibility to make sure they're brought up in a loving environment and that they benefit from having the support of a family-type environment. That is where I would put my efforts into, looking how we expand that. Thank you.
Thank you, and back to the beginning again. Number 1, Gino Rizzoli, please.
Private rentals. There is a couple of ways you can manage this situation. Andiam Homes build property for the states. When they rent property, the rent must be pegged right down at the lowest income levels, so the people on the lowest income can rent them. Now that will put pressure on the private market. Now that's one way that you can take a two-prong approach. You could actually think about, but this requires a bit of thought, whether you want to limit the multiplier when borrowing money. So you try and take the pressure out of the inflationary pressures out of that private property market. If you understand me, multiplier might be borrowing 3 times your annual income, and that's it. That's all the market can have. That may, but there's techniques to dealing with that. That's that subject. Now the other subject, well, development children. I can't tell you how way behind the curve it is on this island. It is in the UK as well. It's not fully understood, and yet there's shelves of books that will explain this. First of all, if you want your children to develop properly, you need a government who acts respectfully, who take everyone in society as being as important as another. Because it's not what you teach your children that makes them learn, it's what you demonstrate. So there is help you can give children in the way you educate them, but at the age of their teenage years, there's much more we can teach them on the mind-body understanding to help them have the tools not to get into trouble in the first place.
Candidate number 2, please.
Thank you. It's a very good but very difficult question. So we've been hearing during this election about growing inequality. The income distribution survey is done every 5 years, and it looks at, one of the things it looks at is inequality. So for the last 10 years, it's been flat, but it improved 5 years ago, and now it's worsened. And if you look at that report, it worsened because of the cost of housing. Those who are home owners have not suffered so much. It's all of those in the rental market, and that's why they're feeling the pinch. It's taken a long time to get to this difficult point, so there is no easy answer to it, and I think all the candidates have suggested that. I think that supply is important, and that's why the redevelopment of some of the secondary office space in St Helier into residential units is going to help with that supply, and we need to do more. That's why we need to release some of the finance centre money so we can do that redevelopment. But also the competition regulator needs to be refocused. That's why I'm talking about that particular issue, to drive down the cost of living. And the cost of rental, for those in the rental market, is one of the highest factors in a rising cost of living. So it's not easy, but we need to do more. Mark, with regard to children, you know there's not just two areas that we need to invest in. Post the care inquiry, we put £5 million aside to invest in children's services. We're changing it from being with health to education so that it can be completely joined up. Your new Link service, which is now already oversubscribed and has only been open a couple of months, that needs greater investment. I'm talking about a new contract with children and young people because the Children's Commissioner has already found that in the survey that she did, children have not been listened to, we haven't been providing facilities. Steve will no doubt talk about the need for a new skateboard facility. We've got to invest in that as well. But we're going to have to continue to invest. 1,001 days, brighter futures. That's absolutely right, but it's got to be done in partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate number 3, Steve Pallett, please.
Surprisingly, I won't talk about skate park tonight. Rental prices, a lot of people already talked about supply. I think that there is an issue with supply, but it needs to be the right type of supply. I had an email from somebody a couple of days ago about the buy-to-let market and some of the damage that's potentially doing. Somewhere like College Gardens, for example, which is a fantastic development, is 70% locally bought and 30% overseas. Apparently, the new waterfront development is going to be the other way around. It's going to be 70% overseas buy-to-let. For me, that's going to fuel it. It's going to drive prices up because investors are going to want more money for their apartments. So I think we need to have a look at the share transfer for overseas investors and try to reduce and try to trim that back a little bit. Rental control, I think, is a difficult area to implement. As I think other people have said. In regards to care inquiry, I was quite surprised back in 2014 when I went through a very difficult situation with the youth service and Mark in regards to St Brelard's youth project and realising that the youth service is not a statutory requirement. I couldn't believe that the youth service is not a statutory requirement. We don't by law have to look after our teenagers. We did a lot of we did a lot of work at that period of time to try to get the youth project back on track. It's very good at getting young children get through difficult times. We've got a lot of troubled youngsters in the island, so I will mention the skate park because it does actually help them, and it certainly helps them in a lot of ways, certainly from a social point of view. And the other area I think we need to look at, and one I've dealt with very recently, is nursery care. We had an issue with nursery education funding. We do need to make sure that we've got private nurseries in all our schools. That's something that we're investing in at the moment, and we need to carry on investing in. But the increased funding recently certainly got us through a very sticky patch, but we need more funding in nursery education. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate number 5. Number 4, Stevie Ocean.
I'm on. Oh, thank you. All right. Okay, the private rental sector is a very, very difficult area to police, unfortunately. We should have some control over it, but we don't. Not all landlords in the private sector want to play ball. So they have a tendency to, as far as giving information across, everybody that used to live in somebody else's house in the past had to sign a police book. I did when I first came over here. You all have to do that. You're linked classes a lodge, you've got no rights or anything else for that matter. The problem is there should be some form of commission set up to actually try to police this area, but it's very difficult indeed. You're going to have total consensus from everybody, and that's a very, very difficult area to cover. Okay, now on the point of the child thing, the NSPCC Jersey, I would say working in conjunction with the youth service, this is actually to keep awareness of people being groomed online. And we're not just talking about teenagers here. There's some very, very young people that go online and unfortunately get caught in this trap. So I'd like to see that all supported via TV advertising, adverts in the media, and also web conferencing between schools, maybe 2 or 3 at a time, to keep this momentum going so people know that if there's a problem, they can go to the NSPCC Jersey and it can be taken from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stevie. And candidate number 5, Sarah Ferguson, please.
Coming number 5, your time is up. Think about it. The base level of rents are the social housing rental, and those were put up to 90% of the market. But with Andium and the housing trusts owning so much property, I think, in fact, they make the market. And then the private sector just sort of slots in above it and sort of says, oh, well, if you're paying that for a social rented bed sit, then if I've got a bed sit, it's a better quality, therefore it will be so-and-so. And that's one of the problems. And the other one is that, as everybody else has said, we've got demand vastly exceeding supply. 4,200 immigrants over the past 4 years makes life very difficult. But we've got to deal with the immigration, but we've got to deal with it in such a manner that we can still have immigration for the businesses that desperately need it, like hospitality and agriculture. And there's also little things like the cost of actually building housing. The price per tonne of cement in the UK is half the price of cement, a tonne of cement here. So, we've got to deal with things like that at the same time. Now, the children's thing, children's mental health I would put money into, and the nursery costs, because there is a great division between private and public provision, and the private nurseries haven't had a rise for, I think it's the last 4 years, in the grant they have to provide the free nursery service. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate number 6, Philip Maguire, please.
I'm not much of a fan of Andium. However, they have declared war against the private sector by declaring that their rents are going to be 90% of the commercial rate. Hopefully, that will lead to a price war where the private sector will decide that they are going to have to lower their rents to make it more reasonable for people. It may be a slim hope, but it's something. Also, at the last census, there were 7% of our present housing was unoccupied. That's 3,000 houses. Surely we can do something about bringing them back into the market and serving it. After all, we're talking about building houses, but that takes time, whereas these houses exist. In fact, this very parish has the greatest proportion of empty houses, according to the last census, at 9%. These are houses that are currently empty. People want to live over here. Can't we do something about getting those two organised? As far as the children, I'm afraid I've only got one solution. I'm afraid I'm a simple man that way, which is that when we do find child abusers, let's do something about sorting them out. It really does annoy me that when they do get caught, they get these trivial sentences in comparison to the crimes that they commit. The last one was told that it was suggested that he should have a harsher crime to make it more in line with England, and that in England he would get 18 years, and he got 9 over here. That's hardly harsh. Surely when we find people who actually are harming our children, we should do our damnedest to remove them as far away as possible from them. Just my opinion.
Thank you. Candidate number 7, Sam Mesek, please.
On rents, let's just be clear about this. Jersey's housing market is broken, and it is as simple as that. We have a market that works in the interests of investors and not in the interests of people who need a home. And this point on social housing, it being 90% of market rates, that bringing rents down, no, it has the opposite effect. It actually pushes rents up because it's such a substantial part of the market. And I worry that we're going towards a society where the only way anyone can afford to rent a property is for it to be in social housing, where it's topped up by income support. And that really is not a market that's working well. Building new homes is only part of the solution, because it doesn't matter how many homes you build if they're all built up by investors who just charge extortionate rents because they want to make money. We've got to utilise the properties we have in a much smarter way. And I know some people, will say, oh no, regulation, red tape, that's all bad. I think that actually we do need to look at it, because there are some appalling standards in parts of the housing market that really should not be allowed to exist in Jersey. And I think there are letting agents and landlords who are getting away with things that they should not be allowed to do. If I were housing minister, and I'll be honest and say that is actually a job I would quite like to do, and there's a few things I would do. There are certain letting agent fees that I would abolish immediately and say they're not allowed to charge. We would re-establish the rent tribunal so you can challenge rents when they're being charged unfairly, introduce a fast-tracked dispute resolution service, and introduce an empty property tax so the properties we have are being utilised properly. Young people, this is, I think, one of the most important things the next government will have to get to grips with, implementing every single recommendation from the Care Inquiry. I think the biggest concern is with Recommendation 5 on building a sustainable workforce. We struggle to recruit and retain people in this area, rents being one of the things that helps put them off. So we need to really get to grips with this, invest in that service so we can have better things like mental health support. There's going to be independent inspections of children's services later this year. We need to listen to those recommendations and implement them.
Thank you. And candidate number 8, Gordon Troy, please.
Yeah, you're asking for two things. Well, one of the reviews of 3 cases found no less than 32 recommendations that needed to be addressed on social workers attending to children that were at risk from abuse. And from what Mr. Mezek says here, things sound as though we're addressing them. And I really hope that that does happen, because it is so important. Moving on to housing, it's about supply and demand. You've heard it again and again. But unless government provides land for houses and flats, there's nothing's going to change. Government needs to get land passed. And ways of doing that would be to stop this user pays planning system where there's huge fees paid and then people get refused and they just can't afford to keep applying. So if user pays planning fees were done away with, there'd be a lot more planning applications which would bring more homes. And the other thing we need to do is address on planning applications the NIMBY mentality, where you've got people that just don't want other people living next to them. So when you put in a planning application, there is massive complaints, and we've got to get to a situation where we can ignore these unnecessary complaints, because we're not going to get the land passed otherwise. And that's all I can say on it, sorry.
Thank you. Candidate number 9, Lyndon Farnham, please.
Thank you. I alluded to the housing issue in my opening address this evening, and why I'm keen to find ways for young people to get into the home ownership ladder is because there are currently about 1,000 families in the rental, social and private sectors currently looking for affordable homes. So if we can move those people into affordable housing where they can purchase their own homes, we free up a lot of stock in the rental sectors. And that should help to create more supply and balance out. It will stabilise prices. It might even bring some prices down. I don't think a couple of the candidates have mentioned rent control, and while that is a laudable ambition, it tends not to work because it reduces the supply of housing as property owners find other better returns for their properties. We also need to have a really good look at this sale by share transfer, excuse me, to stop overseas investors exploiting our local housing market. In relation to children, well, there's so many things we need to do. I support the Children's Commission, and the work of the Children's Commissioner is so important because that will facilitate so many more of the care inquiry recommendations. The youth service must continue to invest in the youth service. They do a fantastic job. They need more investment. But also we need, I think, working with the youth sector to provide more and better facilities for children. Skateboard park, a world-class skateboard park, let's do it properly, and other sporting and leisure facilities. And finally, we need to invest more in the third sector. Tracy mentioned Brighter Futures. That's just one of the brilliant organisations that works over here, and we must spend more of the taxpayers' money. I know you won't mind if we invest in those people. Thank you.
Thank you. And to the penultimate candidate, John Lafondre, please.
Okay, gentleman to my left, a bit difficult to come up with anything new at this stage, but yes, Brighter Futures Youth Service in 1,001 Days. Continue to support the nursery education sector, and actually for the avoidance of doubt, I brought an amendment in that ensured the states did not continue to try to give itself a competitive advantage in that sector, which is what it's trying to do. There's still some issues in there. Mental health, absolutely. And actually, as has previously been alluded to, one of the most biggest failings, actually, of the whole thing, in my view, was organisational culture. It was the biggest failings in terms of our public sector. And so I think the main point of that is about ensuring all checks and balances are in place to ensure it obviously can't happen again. But that's about transparency, attitude, and creating a supportive environment for children. Lady to my right on housing, we've all said there's no quick solution. It's going to be a mix of issues, and obviously it's about dampening demand and increasing supply. I agree with Lyndon in terms of rent control. I don't think that's a good thing because I think it causes some fairly bad behaviours. However, one of the other issues we also alluded to, we've let in just over 4,000 people in the last 4 years, which should have been 1,300 according to the original plans. The 90% rent thing, I think, has an impact on the market, even though that's the social rental sector. I will just add that actually a further amendment I brought, which was a major battle at the time, was to make it, the Council Minister's policy was put everybody in the social rented sector at 90%, and I brought it in as up to. Small change, massive debate, and quite difficult to get through. There's a housing market review going on that's going to look at external buy-to-let. I think that's going to again be important because that must be having an impact on the market. The most important thing is getting good data to understand where we are. I would note, actually, I think the Chief Minister alluded to funds coming out of the Finance Centre. The last MD says that the profits, I think, will be retained to build the car park. We then need to amend the island plan and get those policies in there to discourage luxury flats and to encourage affordable sector. I hope that helps. Thank you.
And our final answer for this evening from Christina Moore, please.
Thank you. I mentioned in my speech the impact of rental hardship on families, and it is an issue that we have an absolute desire to address and improve, and I think we have done, contrary to what's been said along the table this evening. We did recently introduce the Rented Dwellings Act, which is all about driving up the standard and the quality of housing available in the private rental market. Of course, the work to build affordable houses will also release supply into the market, and so I fully support the work that Andium's doing, and we clearly need to see quicker decision making so that sites such as the one here in St Peter can be developed and released for housing for families. The pressure, as I mentioned, on families and housing also obviously has a bearing on family life and general well-being. And so in relation to Mark's question about what would be done for children, I would like to invest further, as Deputy Valois mentioned, in projects like Brighter Futures that do essential work in supporting families and helping them to grow together in an excellent environment where children can thrive. The Children's Commissioner last weekend, I think, published the initial findings of the survey. She went out to children around the island in different age groups and asked them what they felt about life in Jersey. And one of the overriding findings from each age group was that the children wished to see more facilities available for their age group. And so I think it would be absolutely essential that we did that and invest in more services and facilities that the children want to see themselves.
Well, thank you all very much. I think just if I can take the opportunity of having a few words, and it's really for the young lady that spoke about rental prices. As you probably most of you know, it's very close to my heart at the moment, trying to develop affordable homes. And I work closely understanding the property market, and the market has shown that in the first 3 months of this year, property prices have gone up in the up to £1 million by £70,000 this year in the first 3 months. That will have a direct impact on more housing distress for those that can't afford to pay the rents for decent properties. Now, having that little message over, I'd like to thank all the candidates here this evening for being here and answering so succinctly and behaving extremely well. Thank you all very much for that. And equally to the audience. We're just about at 200 in here this evening, and you've all been an excellent audience and asking very good questions. Thank you very much for taking the interest and the time to come and listen to your candidates.